Today, in Draw My Life, the scariest lost movies. Hello there! We know that you love the creepiest lost episodes, but today we wanted to bring you something a little bit different, to spice things up. We hope you enjoy them as much as we did, and without further ado, roll the tape. It was 2005. I was at home watching TV in my living room as usual. My mom told me that something had come up at work, so she had to leave and would probably come back very late. I understood and told her not to worry about me. I would go to sleep early. A few hours later, around midnight, I started to get worried because my mom still hadn't returned. The night was dark and lonely. It was very late and I was tired. So I decided to go to sleep because I didn't want my mom to scold me, as she could come back at any time. I woke up again at some point in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Suddenly, I heard loud footsteps coming from downstairs. Somewhat frightened, I hid under my sheet, hoping those noises would go away. Once I didn't hear them anymore, I decided to go downstairs to see what had happened. There was nothing out of the ordinary or no trace of anyone. I thought my mind had tricked me. I walked over to the sofa and looked at something lying on the couch. It was the movie I loved as a kid, Monsters, Inc. Somewhat unsettled, I took the case and opened it to see what was inside. I saw a disc with a rather confusing title written in a red marker. It said, "We'll come for you in your sleep." The title made me curious. It was something strange, and I thought about watching it the next day. But this movie was one of my favorites, so I couldn't resist. I put the DVD on the player and waited for it to load. The opening was far different from how I had seen it as a child. I could see a little boy sleeping like in the movie, but out of nowhere came Sully to scare him. I thought it was strange since he didn't appear in that scene. With a roar, he woke the boy up. The child began to cry. Then Sully, with his big claws, started to tear the boy apart and then took the remains to a closet. The scene suddenly changed to Mike and Sully talking about who they should scare next. Mike told Sully that they had to scare more children so that no one would take away his title of Scarer of the Year. Sully, pissed off, told him to call more doors so he wouldn't let anyone, especially not Randall, steal that hard-earned title from him. He said he wouldn't mind killing children to achieve his goal. Mike, frightened, did as Sully requested. He desperately tried to call as many doors as possible, but the system crashed and the whole machinery failed, causing the doors to be stuck at the top. Sully only complained about what Mike had done, and in a very frightening way, he grabbed Mike with one hand, lifted him, and angrily squeezed his eye until it exploded. Mike went blind, and Sully could only hear his friend's shuddering scream. Sully grabbed Mike by the legs and dragged him into the crusher, where he ruthlessly threw him into it. You could hear Mike's bones crushing and his last agonizing screams. Out of nowhere, Randall showed up and said to Sully, well, who do we have here? The man who can beat me. Ha ha ha. It won't be long before I beat you, you damn monster who doesn't know how to control his impulses. If you want to fight, I'll be waiting. When Sully heard this, he replied with a demonic voice, "You asked for it yourself. You shall suffer the same fate as Mike." Sully grabbed Randall and with great strength ripped off his tail and threw it into the ground. It squirmed and kept twitching. Randall began to grow a new tail as he laughed. Sully, even more furious, pulled Randall's head off. Randall tried to get away but didn't succeed. He had a slow and painful death. Then Sully threw Randall into the crusher. The next thing I could see was Sully alone at work, and it was at night, and the moonlight lighted his surroundings. 5 doors came in that Mike had called on before the machinery broke down. So Sully entered the first door, and when he opened it, he found a pair of twins sleeping in a bunk. Without wasting any second, he gave such a roar that the twins began to scream and panic. Sully grabbed one of the twins and began to devour him. When he saw that he was already dead, Sully had another gory idea. On top of the other twin, he saw there was a fan hanging from the ceiling. So Sully grabbed the poor fellow and turned on the fan. He lifted it and raised his face right up on the blades, cracking and disfiguring his whole face.
After this, Sully went to the next door, where a little girl was sleeping. As usual, he scared her, but this time, something unexpected happened. The girl's parents appeared, and in horror, they tried to stop the monster. I saw how Sully tore the mother with his claws and left her on the ground bleeding to death. The father reacted as quickly as possible and shot Sully in his hand with a shotgun. Sully grunted in pain, picked him up, and slammed him against the wall until his skull crushed. Then, he turned to the poor girl and said, "Don't cry, you'll be with them soon." As soon as he said this, the screen went black. I could only hear the screams. Sully then headed to the last door. Before entering, he stopped and looked at the screen. He leaned closer and whispered, "I'm coming for you, little brat." When Sully said that, the screen went black, and right after, I started to hear footsteps coming from upstairs from my bedroom. Trembling, I went to check where the sound came from. I tried to go upstairs as quickly as possible so no one would hear me. I went into my room and didn't see anything out of the ordinary until my closet door slowly started to creak open. I jumped in fear when I saw a creature that looked like Sully but with no eyes and a very unsettling smile. Quickly, I ran into the living room to try to save myself and call for help. The monster chased me, and when he found me, he said something that made my blood run cold. "As you can see, we have always existed. What the parents say is completely false. We have always been terrorizing many victims. We scare children in their dreams, feeding on their nightmares. Parents know it, but they don't say it because they are scared that their children will have nightmares. But sooner or later, we will scare them." After he told me that, I ran into my mom's bedroom trying to escape from the creature that wanted me dead. I could hear every step the monster took. He was chasing me like crazy, so I locked the door and tried to block it with everything I could find. Luckily, I managed to escape through the window without getting hurt at all, but just a few scratches. I went to get help from my neighbors and told them that a huge animal had broken into my house. Thankfully, my neighbor helped me and called the police. When the policemen arrived, they asked me what had happened, and I, to avoid being seen as a crazy person, told them that a burglar had broken into my house and I was lucky to get out alive. When I told them that, they asked me for my mom's number and called her. Then they told her everything that had happened. A few days later, my mom and I moved out of town, fearing that something similar would happen to us. I never found the DVD again, and I'm afraid of running into the terrible monster again every time I go to sleep. Is it true what that monster had told me that night? Was he real? Do they really exist? I don't know, nor do I want to know. I only warn you one thing. Be careful when you go to sleep tonight. I remember the first time I saw Madagascar at the cinema. What I liked the most were its charismatic characters, and visually, I thought it was amazing. When I came out of the movie theater, I told my friends that it was undoubtedly one of my favorite movies. The following days, I became obsessed, searching for everything I could find about the movie. Behind the scenes, Easter eggs, symbolisms, everything about the film. After a few days of research, I found a page that said something like the true ending of Madagascar. Obviously, I clicked on it, and it took me to another page while a million pages of ads popped up. Don't you hate it when it happens? I started closing them like crazy and accidentally clicked play on a video on the main page. The first thing that appeared was the title of Madagascar, but without color, like it was unfinished. The film started out quite similar to the original. The animation wasn't quite finished and one or two details were different, but not very relevant. But before the video played, there was a warning. This alternate ending of Madagascar has been changed to match its demographic and deals with topics that are not appropriate for children. So if either you're a child or someone with sensory issues, please don't watch this. Viewer discretion is advised. I had a blank expression on my face. I hope it's just a parody ending. I spoke, trying to reassure myself. I don't want to waste time, so I'll cut right to the point. The good stuff started with the scene where Marty, Melvin, and Gloria were trying to escape from the Fosos. The penguins then came to the rescue. However, there were too many fosas for the animals and penguins to fight. Just then, the gang heard of a ferocious roar. It was coming from none other than Alex. Alex? Marty asked before punching a fosa in the face with his hubs. That's my kill! Mine! Said Alex before dropping down to the ground. He proceeded to walk towards Marty, growling, looking deranged. Alex is hungry. Alex, eat, he said, still walking towards his best friend. Alex then bared his claws as the ominous music continued playing. A couple of fosas sprinkled salt all over Marty as the lion was still walking up to him. Alex's eyes began to form into a shade dark of red, and when he moved his teeth towards Marty, instead of whispering, "It's showtime," as in the finale of the film, he bit Marty on the neck. Marty screamed agonizingly as the actor Chris Rock was getting tortured. Melvin and Gloria stared in shock at what was happening before exchanging glances. Alex continued gnawing his teeth in Marty's neck until drops of blood were dripping from his neck. Then, his eyes dilated. Alex pried his teeth away from Marty, and the latter collapsed with no pulse. He then sucked the blood of his fingers and sighed in relief. That was a good, tasty zebra, said Alex before looking directly at Gloria and Melvin. It cut to a shot of Alex staring at the two animals, who are off screen as if he was staring at me. I felt extremely uncomfortable watching this. I closed my eyes until the staring was over. Melvin broke the silence by shouting, "Run, Gloria, run!" The giraffe and hippo made a run for it before Alex chased after them on all fours. He lunged onto Melvin and started biting him. Melvin began screaming. It wasn't funny, but rather blood-curdling and agonizing. The hippo screamed, watching her boyfriend being mauled by her friend-turned-predator. The blood was minor, but it was still shocking to see Melvin's corpse. His eyes were blank. His mouth was agape, and he was crying blood. Alex then slowly turned to Gloria, grinning sinisterly before saying, "I'm hungry for some hippo." Gloria ran away screaming, looking for a place to hide, as Alex chased after her. Gloria hid in a bush, and she panted to catch a breath. She looked through the bushes to catch a sight of Alex, but he was nowhere to be seen. Gloria sighed in relief. However, she heard a voice saying, "Let's play Hungry Hungry Hippos." As Gloria turned around, it was Alex with his pupils dilated. "Alex, please, we're friends, not food. Don't do this." Gloria pleaded as Alex stared right at her before he lunged onto her. It cut to a shot of the bush rustling as we could hear Alex roaring and Gloria letting out a blood-curdling scream. The screaming stopped as soon as the bush stopped rustling. It then cut to the penguins alone in the rocky setting. "Well, boys, this is it. The lion has come down a dark path," Skipper said. Private began to sob. "I don't want to be poultry. I'm just a cute little penguin." Kowalski heard Alex roars. "It seems like we're done for. The oversized feline had found us," he remarked worriedly. Alex emerged from the bushes and walked up to the four penguins. "It was nice knowing you, boys," said Skipper sadly. Alex began to prick Private up with his jaw while the latter screamed before swallowing him whole. Rico was shocked before he started to run. Skipper and Kowalski ran too. Alex pounced on Rico and ate him whole. "Kowalski, what do we do now?" Skipper asked with concern. Kowalski thought for a second before saying, "We have to get to the cruise ship before any other predators try to consume us." "Affirmative," said Skipper. The two remaining penguins ran through the forest, catching a sight of the cruise ship, as seen earlier in the film. However, Alex jumped out from a bush just like a jump scare and attacked Kowalski. I could hear Kowalski's agonizing scream as he was being eaten alive by Alex. Skipper watched in horror before falling to his rear and sulking. "You're next, avian boy," Alex teased as he slowly approached Skipper. It showed a shot of Skipper's point of view of Alex's face until he threw his face forward with a slack jaw, and it cut to black with Skipper screaming. Then it faded to a scene where the fosas were chatting. Just then, Alex approached the hideout. "My fosas, I'm your king now. We pray, we hunt, we eat, and we roam. Bow down to me," Alex monologues. The fosas bowed to Alex, accepting him as their king. Then he lifted his head up and roared into the sky. The posters then roared with him. Alongside, a dramatic music played while the camera panned into the gray, cloudy sky. Then it faded to black. The video then ended, and I was appalled. I had never seen a twisted version of Madagascar. I grasped my hands over my face as I was crying. I never knew people could add creepy things in animated DreamWorks films, like what they do with Pixar. I wanted to delete the file, but I kept it because I thought it would be a good idea if people wouldn't believe me. I posted the video to Google Drive and sent my friends the link. They were appalled too. Madagascar was a good movie from my childhood, but what I saw will always be in my nightmares. So be careful what links you click on.
After an unsuccessful robbery, Charles Lee Ray was being chased by the police. They proceeded to fire on him, critically injuring him. He stumbled into a toy store and saw one of the most popular dolls. He used voodoo to transfer his soul into the doll, but just a doll was not enough for Charles. He wanted a human body. Using this doll, he wanted to trick a little boy to transfer his soul into this new body. The chosen one was Andy, whose mother gave him this doll as a birthday present. However, the doll had another plan. He wanted to use Andy so he would get his revenge. After Chucky killed several people, the police thought Andy was the author of the murders, so he gets transferred to a mental hospital. But Chucky wants to go through with his plans, and he decides to sneak in the hospital to get what he wants: Andy's body. The boy finally runs away, and when he arrives to his house, Chucky is already waiting for him, and he hits Andy with a baseball bat. When he regains consciousness, the voodoo ritual was almost ready. However, he managed to throw Chucky into the fire, and then Andy's mother proceeded to fire at him until one of the bullets went through his heart. This is how the nightmare came to an end. After this horrible experience, Andy and his mother decided to file a complaint against the Good Guys company. To prove their bad publicity wrong, the creators of the Good Guy dolls decided to rebuild Chucky, who is then brought back to life. Chucky is ready to fulfill his mission. He wants to take revenge on Andy and transfer his soul into the boy's body. Andy is taken to an orphanage and is separated from his mother. But this is not going to stop Chucky. He finds Andy, kills his foster parents, and takes him to the toy factory. Then, he tries to transfer his soul into the kid's body, but it's too late. He is condemned to live in the toy's body for the rest of his life. Chucky is very mad and tries to kill Andy. However, Andy's stepsister helps him killing the toy, using the machines they found in the factory. They leave Chucky's corpse there, and it goes over a vat of liquefied plastic. Some of his blood leaks out into the vat, bringing him back to life once more to kill Andy, who is now 16 years old and lives in a military school. Andy is already grown up, so Chucky loses interest in him and decides to find another victim: Tyler. After killing a lot of people at the military school, Tyler gets to run away, but Chucky finds him inside a theme park ride. Andy finds out about what's happening and decides to help Tyler. Andy shows up when Chucky is about to perform the ritual. The doll is killed by Andy when he's thrown into a giant fan, tearing his body into pieces. Everyone thought that the nightmare had come to an end, but Tiffany, Chucky's girlfriend, using parts of other dolls and his remains, sews him back together and attempts to resurrect him. However, she's very disappointed to see nothing's happen and locks him in a room. Chucky kills Tiffany and then gains further revenge by transferring her soul in the brighter doll. Then, together, they keep looking for the heart of Damballa, which is what they need to find new bodies. Everything changes when they have a son, called Glenn. He lives with a ventriloquist and decides to escape and find his parents to resurrect them. Chucky is happy because he can leave Glenn his legacy. However, the boy turns out to be good. Tiffany wants to transfer her soul into an actress's body, but Chucky decides to get her pregnant with his evil babies, and she soon gives birth to twins. Chucky tries to kill Tiffany while she tries to transfer her soul into a new body. Glenn attacks Chucky and finally kills him. Tiffany finally gets to transfer her soul into the actress's body and divides Glenn's soul to transfer it into the twins. The girl gets Glenn's evil part and the boy gets the good one. 4 years later, a parcel is delivered to them. When they open it, they find Chucky's arm inside. Chucky still wanted to get revenge, so he chose a new victim. Alice is a girl that quickly adopts him as a new good guy doll when he mysteriously arrives in the mail. Alice's aunt, Nika, thinks that the doll is linked to several murders in the family, but before she kills Chucky, the police arrests her and she is found guilty for Chucky's crimes, so she ends up in prison. Chucky performs his ritual with Alice, but her granddad stops him and sends the doll to his first owner, Andy. Chucky thinks he will be able to kill his old owner, but Andy already knows how the doll attacks, so before he can react, Andy shoots and finally kills Chucky. Even if he did kill Chucky, wickedness is always around the corner. If he came back several times, he can do it again. Whatever happens, we know that it might happen one day. Chucky could come back.
So, which one is your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for your support, and we hope to see you soon.